Super excited to announce a new partner that I'm working with, Meat Locker Official. They are a meat company. They ship all kinds of meat. Go check out their website, meatlocker.com. It's amazing. Man, let me tell you, the bacon. The bacon's the best bacon I've ever had in my life. All the other meats are very good. I had a nice ribeye the other day, chicken breast, all kinds of stuff. The steaks and the bacon, though, for sure the best bacon I've ever had in my life. Meatlocker.com. Type in the code name Easton 2019. EASTON 2019, and you will receive 15% off of your order. Again, meatlocker.com. Get some bacon. Evo Labs products. Man, I love a couple of Evo Labs products that I like to use. I like to use their skin repair and intensive salve. Man, the skin repair is amazing for when I get like these little abrasions on my skin, and you're always worried about like whether you're going to get an infection or not, or how it's going to heal. Skin repair, Evo Labs skin repair. Go check them out, evolabs.com. And then 2, their intensive salve. Okay. Again, this is for like a little bit of soreness after I train at the end of the day. Rub it all over, especially like my upper back and my arms, then my legs. Love it. Again, evolabs.com. I do also like their Meditate. It's a CBD pen where, at the end of the night, it helps me calm down, go to sleep, especially after like intense training during the day. So those 3 products are 3 of my favorite products from Evo Labs. 1, the skin repair, 2, the intense salve, and 3, the CBD pen. The Gospel Fire also brought to you by Onnit, ONNIT. Go to their website and, man, go check out their products. Code name is Eliot. You put in Eliot, ELIOT, and you will get 10% off all of your Onnit products. I personally like the Alpha Brain. That is my favorite product, and every once in a while I like to use their Shroom Tech as well. So those 2 products are my favorite from Onnit. So again, Evo Labs guys at evolabs.com and Onnit, ONNIT. Check them out. Thanks for the support of the podcast from those guys, and hell yeah, let's get after it. Hey guys, this is former UFC fighter Eliot Marshall, and this is the Gospel of Fire, where we're going to go through the fire to learn how to live the best life possible. All right guys, I'm here in another episode of the Gospel of Fire with, I would probably say, the best American Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and most accomplished American Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner ever, Rafael Lovato Jr. What's up, man?
Oh, not much, man. Thanks for having me on.
Man, thanks for coming on. Man, I think that's true. Like not only you were the second American, right, to become a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And
yeah, it kind of depends on how you categorize Robert Drysdale. He has dual citizenship, and so, but he is an American, and so if you put him on your list, I would be number 3.
All right, we'll go through. Let's say worst case scenario, you're the 3rd. So
yes.
And there's only been 4, correct? You, Drysdale, if we're going to count Drysdale. You, Drysdale, BJ was the first, and then Michael Mushami, right?
And Jameel Hill Taylor.
Oh, Jameel Hill. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He got one too. Hell yeah. So we're getting there. The Americans 5. are 5. The Americans are coming. So
we have a handful after 25 odd years of world championships, or 20 something years. Right. We now have a handful.
Nice, man. Hell yeah. And now you're like you're getting there in MMA, right? Like you are. It's the MMA thing is so weird, right? Because like what's getting there, but like you're coming up. You're undefeated in MMA now, and like it's a whole other challenge that you like seem to just be embracing and running with. And you have a title fight in Bellator.
Yes, that's correct. I've been working my way up. Things have moved pretty quickly, I was scheduled to fight for the title at the end of January, and unfortunately, Masasi was injured, and so it's been postponed. And I'm still waiting on a new date. It looks like it's going to be sometime this spring, hopefully. And I'm going to do a couple grappling matches in the meantime. Yeah, it's been amazing. Really enjoy the experience that I've gained from fighting. This whole element to my martial arts journey. Definitely the goal this year is to become the Bellator champion and hopefully defend it one time as well.
All right, man. Well, damn, like you're the best, man. There's no other American, in my opinion. There's no other American that has done more for the sport of jiu-jitsu, for moving it. You know, like you're the top. You're the gold standard. So congratulations on that. You know.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, man. But this is not my podcast. You know, my podcast is kind of about like the work of all of that and like what it's like behind the scenes. You know, for what the suck of it was like. You know, when you and I met, when I remember. Do you remember when we met? You remember the first time we met?
Was it in Brazil?
No, the first time we met was at the very first American National tournament.
Was that like 2003?
Yeah, like I think it was 2003. Yes. You know, it was before that shit show of a Pan Am's. You remember? Do you remember that Pan Am's where it was a 5-hour line to weigh in?
Yes.
It was up in Santa Barbara. You know, I think.
Yeah.
And then you get to the front of the line, and the reason that it was such a shit show is they only had 2 fucking pens. Right? There was only 2 pens for you to fill out the paperwork.
And like 1 scale.
Yeah, it was craziness. You know, it was craziness. 1 scale open. They had other scales, but they weren't using them. And you were just like, guys, come on. You know, but
it was bad before that too.
Yes.
One of the ones in Florida was really terrible as well.
Yes.
I remember standing outside for several hours.
Yeah. I mean, they all were several hours. Like I think it was the year before in Florida that was terrible. Like I did that one too, you know? So, I got a little luckier though. I was like passing out. So like they let me just skip to the front of the line. So that was nice of them.
Yeah, back then you had to have a high level Brazilian friend to help get you to the front. Yes. I can remember at the Santa Barbara one, man. Like I didn't know it at the time, but like I had won the I had won the American Nationals for my weight, and Romulo had won the Brazilian Nationals for his weight. You know, so we were for the same weight. So we were going to fight that. You know, that was the first time they were doing America versus Brazil. But I had no clue. I had no clue who he was, and he had no clue who I was. And he like tried to cut the line, and I was like, "No, man!" And we were like pushing each other in line, like you know, we didn't know that we were going to fight each other the next day. Hey, well, that worked out good.
I lost, but yeah. So, you know, but it was funny. It made some tension, right? It made some tension. Yeah. Like we both got on the mat. And we're like, oh, this motherfucker, you know? Right. So, but that we met at the American National part of it, and you were young, you know, I think you were Carlos Machado at that time, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And there was this like switch you made to the Ribeiro brothers. You know, and I would really say, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that's when it took off for you. Like, I mean, you were good. Let's not get anything crazy. You weren't not good at that time. But when you went to Saulo and Shanji, you know, and they like, I think they like really took you under their wing. As I guess how I would describe it. You're going to describe it better here. You know, what was that transition like? You know, but it's not often that you see that transition. It doesn't, you know, it's not pretty normally. And what did that do for your career and your I mean, not fuck your career, your life, you know, but it's got to change your life if it's going to change your career. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, no, I would agree with you. That was definitely a huge, you know, shift in my journey, in my career, competitively. You know, it was just destiny the way it worked out. I actually ended up competing against Saulo in 2003, that same year, 2003, at the finals of the Arnold's Pro Nogi, which at that time I call it the Arnold's, but it was like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Expo that had the Gracie, the Helson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu tournament.
That was a big one back in the day. There weren't many big ones, right? It was Grappler's Quest, Arnold's, Naga wasn't even really that big yet, right?
No, and this. They gave like $5,000 for first place. And so it brought a lot of heavy hitters. There were a lot of ADCC champions that would compete there. It was basically only second to ADCC at that time.
Right.
And they only had 3 weight classes: a lightweight, a middleweight, and a heavyweight. And so it was really big. The divisions were stacked. And, you had to send in an application to get in the tournament. And, I was a 19-year-old brown belt at the time, and I'm from Oklahoma, which isn't a jiu-jitsu hotbed by any means.
People have to understand, like, back in this time, like, everyone, like, there's flow grappling now, right? Like, where it's like jiu-jitsu every weekend and fight to win pro and this and that. Man, this shit, like, we came up a little bit pretty much in the same era. The shit wasn't easy back for that.
No.
Like, you had to, like you had to search this shit out to find a tournament and travel. Like, there was, unless you lived in California, a lot. California and a little bit on the East Coast. Not a little bit of travel, a ton of travel. Like, you were paying a lot of money to compete.
Yeah. I mean, I was paying a lot of money just to learn.
Yeah.
I didn't have a black belt in my state, so my father and I were doing trips to California when I was a kid. I went to Brazil for the first time when I was 16. In this era, you had to go to Brazil to learn and see what, high level jiu-jitsu really was and compete at the Worlds and all that. And then Carlos, was the first black belt to come to our area of the country. He was in Dallas, Texas. And so I was constantly driving down to Dallas. So was my dad. My dad went once a week, every week for like 3-4 years. So, that
and there was no YouTube.
A bit of our history.
Right.
Yeah,
there was no YouTube. There was no MG Online or MG in Action. There was no Estima in Action. There was no Mendez Brothers, Hajar Gracie. There was none of this. Like, you were super stoked when you learned how to, like, finish a triangle well.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a lot of sacrifice and, a lot of investment into every bit of technique that you learned, every experience that you had. And, so all the high level champions were very, like, they had like a mystique about them because you just didn't get to see them that often. They were in Brazil and maybe you could get your hands on some OTM VHS tapes or some Pakita tapes and see some videos of them. Otherwise you had to go to Brazil and watch them, live. And the only tournament that was in the U.S. was the Pan Ams, and that would bring a couple of them over. Mm-hmm. But basically, it was really, like I said, they had a mystique about them. And so there I was, 19-year-old brown belt in the same division with Saulo, who was already a legend and
couple-time world champion at that point. No,
he was already a 6-time.
Yes,
he had already, won all of his world titles at that point in time. It was my dream. I said, man, when I sent in my application to get into the pro tournament, they responded, and I knew Saulo did that event because he had a strong affiliation in the Midwest. And they said, congratulations, you've been accepted. You're in the same division as Saulo Ribeiro. Good luck. It is basically what the email said. And so
get ready to lose.
Was just right. And I was just like dreaming, man, how awesome would it be to get a match with Saulo? I didn't really care. I'm a 19-year-old brown belt, nothing to lose. Like, man, it would just be so cool to step on the mat with him. And so sure enough, he was on one side of the bracket. I was on the other. And he destroyed his side. Obviously he submitted everybody. And I fought my way to the finals. I had 3 matches on the way. And in the semifinals, I actually went against one of his black belts. And he was beating me on points. I could tell he was kind of getting tired, and I was starting to get some momentum on my side. And towards the end of the match, I was able to submit him and secure my spot in the finals. And so that added another element to it, going against one of his black belts first.
And winning.
Right. And, it was kind of expected that he would beat me, obviously, and close it out with Saulo. And so now all of a sudden, Saulo has to fight a final. I was really nervous stepping on the mats with him. And Saulo did his thing where he kind of just walks right at you and kind of goons you, and I just
in true Ribeiro fashion.
You're right. And I just set to guard like super quick.
Yeah.
And we had a good match. I was proud of how I did. I nearly survived the whole time. You know, it was a 10-minute match. He caught me at the very end, and you know, I was super happy. Like, I got to fight Saulo, and I won like $1,500 for second place. And so that, as a 19-year-old kid at that time, that was amazing. You know?
There was no $1,500. This was like, I don't know. What did Saulo make that year competing?
Yeah. I mean, I think he got like 5 in the final for that Arnold's, and ADCC gave 10. But other than that, you were lucky if you could get 1,000 at a Grappler's Quest Absolute,
which would then pay for your trip.
Right. Basically. Yeah. You weren't getting flown anywhere for free. No. You know, sponsorships were just like, you know, here's some t-shirts
and a gi. Yeah, they'd give you a gi.
Right. So, you know, I was stoked, and, you know, I took pictures with him, and later that year in Brazil, I was there, and that was when they had the 2 tournaments. There was the World Cup, and then the actual Worlds. You know, there was the CBJJO that was started by Nova Niao. Yeah. And so I was competing at the World Cup, and I saw Saulo there, and, you know, I went and said hi to him, and he was super nice, and he's, you know, typical, like, oh, my brother, great to see you, blah, 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 blah. Where are you training? And I told him where I was training. And he was like, well, would you want to come by and train with us? And I was, yeah, I would love to. So he gave me his card. He said, call me on Monday, you know, because this was the weekend at the tournament. He said, call me on Monday. I'll come by your hotel and pick you up. And so sure enough, I called him. Next thing you know, he's on his way. Him and Shanji pick me and a couple of my buddies up. They take us to Copacabana, where his school was at the time. And I get to train with him and his guys. And I actually went a couple times that week to train with him. I just fell in love with it right away. You know, this was at a whole nother spectrum, and I'm sure you experienced it before. You know, like back in this time, for the most part, Brazilians were not, you know, super excited to really like teach and take Americans under their wing and really, like, you know,
they would beat you up. They had no problem beating you up, but showing you how they beat you up was a totally different thing. Exactly.
You really had to become, you know, super friends with someone to get that sort of love and have them really, really teach you. You know, you maybe get a 70% of the technique if you were lucky. You know, there's always a little bit of details. You can never really, you know, it was just hard to break through. And at that time, because of my, you know, affiliation with Carlos Machado, I was training at Gracie Barra, and I just never really felt 100% like at home there. I guess I would say.
Were you going with Carlos?
He only went one time. Carlos was starting a family, and so for the most part, I was always on my own.
That was a deal breaker, probably.
Yeah, and then I think there's a little bit more to that story as well.
The Machado Gracie Barra thing, yes.
So, you know, and because of my, I guess my potential, maybe they saw me as kind of a threat, as someone that they would be competing against, and so, anyways, you know, then there I am with Saulo and his guys, and I'm basically right in the midst of, you know, these amazing training sessions where he's going over strategy, teaching technique, and giving them mindset, you know, everything. And, you know, because it's the week of the actual Worlds, you know, and so the energy is super high, and everyone is, you know, really pumped up and inspired, ready to go to battle. And I'm right in there, you know, as a complete, you know, gringo outsider that has nothing to do with this team and actually fought Saulo a few months ago, you know, and he's like, just, you know, spitting so much knowledge, and I'm like, holy shit, you know, I'm learning more in this, you know, this one class, this first day, than what I've learned in all my other trips to Brazil put together. and I could see the family that he had, how close everybody was. And so I was like, man, I want more of this, and we trained, had an amazing time, hung out, got lunch with them and everything. And as soon as I came back home, I told my dad about it. And I said, Dad, we got to get Saulo out here for a seminar. This was mind blowing. And so I stayed in touch with Saulo. As soon as he came back to the U.S., we brought him to Oklahoma. And he did a seminar, and that was basically all she wrote. We just stayed in touch ever since. He kept inviting me to come train. And, there I was in a room with Saulo and Shanji, just me and them, training for all the tournaments, and basically, getting my ass kicked on a very extreme level, for many years. But I was getting better every time. My confidence was increasing, and Saulo really helped mold my mindset as well, and helped me find myself as a fighter, as a competitor.
What is that mindset, bro?
Well, I mean, a lot of it for me was getting the confidence, and really believing in myself and feeling like I belonged. Because like I said, at this time, the layout was so much different. It was hard to be an American kid, far from all the jiu-jitsu, not really being surrounded by, a bunch of black belts or coming up under a world champion. And then, when it's time to fight those people that you've looked up to and kind of like put on a pedestal, the transition from brown belt to black belt is big, and you kind of like, there are times like my first year as a black belt, I fought Margarita, you know what I mean? And Pechapano, these guys. And it was just like, well, if I could not get tapped, I would be happy. You know what I mean? Like, it was a really hard.
For my listeners that don't understand, some people, if you're not doing jiu-jitsu, so the people he's describing here, these are world champions. These, this is not something that's easily accomplished. And they're not just world champions. They're the best of the best. Because not only were they world champions, they were finishing everybody. They were smashing people, and then they became the absolute world champion. So every year there is there's an absolute division, all weights, no weight classes, anybody can enter. That's a black belt, and here you go. You will be crowned the very best Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner of that year, right? Mm-hmm. So yes. The guys that he's talking about, that he's competing against, are those guys. So yeah, it's very easy to be like, okay, and we know we're good, right? You're good, but to be to go step on the mat with those guys, you're like, okay, just don't get finished. And that's not the mentality of winning. That's not a mindset to be a champion.
Exactly. You're never going to beat those guys with that sort of mindset,
Sure.
Just, okay, survive. And then it was almost like, oh, well, if I lost to him, it's okay because everyone loses.
Everyone loses. I had that mindset. I fought Shanji once, mm-hmm. and I had that mindset. I was like, okay, just don't lose. Don't get okay, not don't lose. Don't get tapped. Don't get tapped. Don't get tapped.
Right.
And then I can even remember, I didn't even know it. I think you told me the score, because I just knew I didn't get tapped, and I was all happy about it, and I think the score was something stupid. I don't even know what the fucking score was, I was so gone. I sat down next to you, and I was like, oh man, and I was all happy, and then I heard you talking about the score, and then you told me, I was like, fuck, that was a lot, huh? That was a lot of points, but I was that, to me, that was a win, but that's not a fucking win.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you're happy to get to face a legend, and you're if you lose, it's well, everyone would just be like, oh, that's awesome, you got to fight him. Oh, don't feel bad. He's so-and-so. He's so good. Da, 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 da. And Americans just weren't doing it at that level at that time. It's not
they're still not really.
Yeah. Now it's very international. There's a lot of
Gordon's doing it. Gordon's doing it. I would say.
But this is Gi.
Gi, nobody.
Totally different.
Totally different. Nobody.
And no Gi Americans were winning ADCC since the very beginning. So
True.
Gi was a completely different conversation,
and it still is.
So like I said, it was just just a different time. And so he helped me, understand that who I was and what I brought to the table, and help me develop my fire and my confidence, and taking all those obstacles that I had, being in Oklahoma, having to travel for everything, never really, like kind of having that, I would say, not that it's easy for some of these great champions, all of them had to overcome something, but, if they were in Brazil and they were already in Brazil, you know what I mean? I had to go to Brazil. I mean, these things that we had to go through,
their obstacles were different than yours.
Yeah.
Right? They're different obstacles. Their obstacle was like, okay, I got to survive life. I live in fucking Copacabana.
Right. Or maybe they had to take a super long bus ride or whatever to get to their academy or something. Maybe they had to sleep on the mats, which I kind of had to do too, at certain points in time. Things like that.
We don't need to compare people's hardness, right? Like, yeah, things were hard. If you want to be a world champion, that shit's fucking hard, right?
Yeah, so for sure. But he helped me understand that, look, my story and my journey, is what made me who I am, and it started to make me feel like I deserve it just as much as them. I belong just as much as they do. And, I'm in this room with Saulo and Shanji, two of the greatest of all time. And I'm coming up with Shanji. When I started training with him, Shanji hadn't won a world title yet.
Right.
And so I'm witnessing Shanji slowly become, like I said, one of the greats. And,
you're seeing this. You're there while it's happening.
Exactly. Behind the scenes, traveling with them, sleeping with them, everything. We were roommates. We were doing everything together. And I'm seeing Shanji's success start to unfold. I'm starting to have more success. And it was just confidence. It's just like, okay, I'm doing everything these guys are doing. And, Saulo knows, and it's happening for Shanji. Why can't it happen for me? It's like, why not me? Why not me?
You took yourself out of you could have been a very big fish in a very small pond. And this is, I think, where a lot of people struggle with decisions when they make them in their lives, is that's fun. Like, you could have stayed in Oklahoma, bro, and you would have been the man, right? You would have been the man.
Yeah.
Like, you would have been you would probably still be one of the best Americans ever, Mm-hmm. Just what it is, right? Like, just what it is. For a long time, I was on that list, until recently. And like the Jamal Pattersons, but the Americans are catching up, especially because of like some no-gi, but you took this and went beyond it. You took this and went beyond it. And that's really hard for people to do, to like take themselves out of their comfort zone where they could actually be something, to be something great. You put yourself with the greats, so that you could experience that.
Right. And my dad really helped prepare me for that. He was always, hard on me and showed me that tough love, and taught me how to work hard and believe in my dreams and go for it and everything. Being in the room with Saulo and Shanji, at that time, like, it was super hardcore. Saulo was still competing. Everyone knows Saulo for being pretty hardcore, but at this time, he was still very hardcore, like extremely hardcore, because he was still competing. He
was still doing it.
Yeah, he was still competing himself. And so, what I was going through in these training sessions was not pretty at all. Like, they tell me now, looking back, that every time I left, they would ask themselves, do you think he'll come back? Because I was getting raped. I mean, I was getting destroyed in the worst way possible, because these guys are, judo, they're throwing me down, pressure pass, smash, mount, choke, over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, I'm going back to back from Saulo to Shanji, back to Saulo. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's no way where at my level where I was at that time
you could handle
that I could handle it. And so
you just got beat up,
and then every time I came back, I went back,
But that's how
so
it's earned.
It just clicked. Yeah, exactly.
Man, but that's how it's earned. I had this experience with Jackson's. I used to put, I stopped competing in jiu-jitsu a little ahead of the black belt time. I got my black belt and I was already pretty much done with the jiu-jitsu and I was moving into MMA. And I went down to Jackson's a lot. And Jesus Christ, man, you would do these, like, he would take you out of the car. Like, you just drove 7 hours, like you're all stiff, and he would take you out of the car. You'd have to do this grueling conditioning. And then, like, head on the fence MMA grappling. And you're like, okay, I'm decent here, and I wasn't good at MMA yet, right? And that's a big difference, like when your head's stuck on the cage, and they can punch you in the face, than it is to just like, doing jiu-jitsu. There's a huge difference here. And I can remember just getting the dog shit kicked out of me, just the absolute like by guys that, like, if we rolled, I would kill them, and they were just like in my guard pounding me, and you're just like, oh God. And then like you were like, why am I doing this? But you knew why you were doing it, and it was so that you could do something cool.
Yeah. And then you start thinking to yourself, oh, if this happens in the fight, I'm going to get hurt, and your friends and family are going to be watching, and all those sort of things. And that's where, the confidence, like being able to remain confident and positive, and also understanding that you can't base your readiness or your ability to perform in a competition on what happens in training. Like, of course you have to work your ass off in training and know that you gave 100% and fully prepared yourself for what's ahead. But at the same time, you should never be perfect in training. And so the ability to let go, cause I would get subbed freaking, there were some days I'm getting subbed more than 10 times in a day, because I'm going back and forth between Saulo and Shanji. Right. And then less than a week later, I'm supposed to go into a tournament and fight against maybe even fight against a guy that's beaten one of them before. Right. And I'm supposed to be confident about it. And so, I eventually learned also how to not let like those days in training hinder my fire, you know what I mean? Right. And my confidence, which is also very important for MMA. Now that I'm fighting MMA, it's like, that is also another element. With so many things that you have to train in MMA, you're always going to get beat up in at least one area. You can't be the best at those three aspects, right? Of the striking, the wrestling, and the jiu-jitsu. Every day you come in probably to an MMA practice and you're the best at the jiu-jitsu, right? Whenever you're going to do the jiu-jitsu day, but the next day you're going to spar, and there's you, the you of jiu-jitsu, in the kickboxing room, and he's sparring with you. He's going to fuck you up. Yeah, he's fucking you up. There ain't nothing to it. Like there's nothing that you can do to prepare. Like you just haven't been kickboxing for 20 years. He has. You've been doing jiu-jitsu. He's going to beat your ass the same way you beat his ass in jiu-jitsu. And so you have to learn how to let go of that. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a big problem for MMA guys. Like we get, I know it was for me when I was fighting. I've just learned how to kind of do this recently. And I actually do it by losing. I don't mind. I try to lose in practice, even like the week of my competitions now. Because it keeps me in a playful mindset of learning always, like if I'll go in and have days where I'm like, I'm not tapping today. Here we go. When I train with some of my top guys, but then there's days where I'm like, okay, let me get in this heel hook and let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. And you know how heel hooks are. Sometimes you fuck them up, right? Sometimes you fuck every defense up, especially when you're going with good guys. But with MMA guys they're so scared to lose because like somehow they incorporate the losing in practice to the losing in the fight. Mm-hmm. And exactly. And then there's no learning. Then all of the learning goes away, right? When every day's a fight. Yeah. It's tough. It's really tough to find the balance and the mindset to be able to deal with it, because on one hand, you really do have to believe that you're the man, that you're the best and you're going to win. No one can stop you. You really do have to feel that, especially when it's time to make that walk to the cage. It's what Conor does. It's exactly what Conor does. Whether he's not, right? He's not the best. Khabib beat the brakes off of him and probably will every time, I think.
or 99 out of 100 and 90 out of 100. But Conor goes in. He has convinced himself that he's the very best every single fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's important. It really is important to, be your own number one fan, I guess, so to speak. But of course, you're not gonna evolve and grow if you're the best in the room all the time. So, where I do my MMA camps, it's in Brazil. So I'm going back to Brazil very frequently these days, but now to a totally different
Evolution,
city.
right?
Evolução, yeah, Evolução Thai. It's in Curitiba, Brazil, the south of Brazil. That's where shootbox is famous, for their roots. And my teachers are first generation shootbox black belts under Rafael Cordeiro. So they grew up, as teenagers, training and fighting alongside, Anderson Silva, Vanderlei, Shogun, all these guys. They've trained them for several of their fights, been in their corners. And
so shootbox, shootbox is super famous for like their wars in practice.
Yeah,
right? And
super hardcore and their style. I mean, obviously being Muay Thai, stand up focused. It was very violent, very brutal. The knockouts they had.
Are they still doing that? Is that still going on, or have they evolved?
I would say that the training room is definitely still maybe more hardcore than most, but it's not like what it was back then. It's smarter. Like, at least now, they're wearing protection. You know what I mean? Or it's a little more controlled. It's not quite as competitive, and they're not doing dumb things where they're like sparring full out the week of a fight, or even right before a fight,
Right. Because there's something to that like I think we've seen that bringing that sparring level down so that you can practice and learn while still getting, like, you're not going to try anything if you know the guy standing across from you is going to knock you out when you blow this. Right. And I get it. I came up in the time, 10 years ago. That's what we did, and when we fucking fought, like I fought 3 times a week, so there was no, it's like, all right, it's fucking scrap, motherfucker. Let's see who falls, and I think we've learned from that is not the way to do it. You need to be able to do that. So there's days when you have to come in to do that, but you also have to, like, this learning thing, like you have to be able to spar with some consequences, but not the full consequence.
Yeah. And so it's a lot more balanced on that end, but like you said, there are definitely the days where that is happening. And that was, really good for me because, I had never been in a street fight or anything like that. And, I'm coming from jiu-jitsu into MMA and, my first pro fight was my first fight ever in my life. And so, it's a completely different world, and it was obviously very scary. It still is.
First practice, right? That first sparring session when you're in the middle of it and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, especially down here where I am with those guys, a bunch of killers, and they're all stand-up specialists. Several of these guys have, 10, 15, 20, knockouts alone on their resume,
my experience with this was Dwayne Ludwig.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh yeah, I could spar a little bit. I've sparred before, yada, yada, but I've never really sparred. I can remember, like, the first time with him, I went home and cried. Like, I sat on my couch and I cried. I'm like, he's a 155 pounder. Like, how am I going to deal with this? Like, I have to fight somebody 50 pounds heavier. I was just bawling my eyes out. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is impossible because I can't handle him. Because he had a lot of fights. He had over 50 fights at that point, and it's a different game.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, just finding that balance. You got to get beat up a little bit, but at the same time, understand that it's just part of the process, and that makes you stronger. And like at the end, it's also like I find, once again, always trying to find the positives in it. It's like, well, I'm fighting, 5 to 6, 7 different guys on a daily basis. Many times it's a fresh one rotating on me, and they're all specialists in different areas. They all move differently. They're built differently. Some are shorter, stronger. Some of them are longer, faster. And so then at the end of the day, it's like, well, okay, this fight is just one man. Now I only have to fight one guy, and just one set of skills. I'm fully prepared. Let's do this. You know what I mean?
That mindset. You're talking about mindset here. How to get in the mindset to be a champion and to be a winner. So. Yes. Amazing. Amazing. I know you got to go soon. One last little topic I wanted to touch: the state of jiu-jitsu today. Where we're seeing a lot of shit talking. On like, how do you feel this is? Where do you just overall, like, how do you feel jiu-jitsu is moving?
Well, as far as jiu-jitsu itself, like the technique and the level of the athletes. Obviously it's always evolving and getting better,
Yes.
You see some of the blue and purple belts nowadays and what they're doing.
Holy
it's
shit,
just like,
right?
Yeah, it's incredible. They would have been good black belts, a decade ago,
yes.
Probably.
Yes.
And so that is very exciting. I love seeing all these professional events out now, the ability
to make
for
money.
To make money and not have to get pushed into MMA. They can just stay in jiu-jitsu, compete professionally in jiu-jitsu. And also jiu-jitsu is so big worldwide. So now there's so many opportunities to travel, do seminars or camps and special things like that. So all of that is really amazing.
That's good that you point that. I liked how you said that, they get pushed to MMA, because I got pushed to MMA. Because I was broke. I had a wife, and it was like, well, Eliot, you got to get a job here, or something's got to happen, right? Like you're losing money on these jiu-jitsu tournaments. So, where we are, so what's going to go? And so I got pushed.
Yeah. All the greats back in the day, once they hit a certain level of accomplishments, there was definitely like okay, so are you going to go to MMA now? You know what I mean? It was just kind of expected, you're going to start fighting MMA. And now they don't have to, and that's awesome. And I've also, have firsthand experience in just being able to go anywhere in the world and man, there's jiu-jitsu happening everywhere. And so, your ability to teach, travel, and just live this amazing life, which, probably isn't getting you rich, you know what I mean? But
right.
You're comfortable, you're doing what you love, and you can travel the world, being around so many amazing people. So, for me, that's irreplaceable with jiu-jitsu. On the, the kind of the trash talking or whatever stuff that's going on, I think that's just kind of a consequence of social media and just the internet in general. Basically all sports have changed through social media and the way that you can keep stats now, you know what I mean? And your record, protecting your record or just building the hype around you. There's, the media coverage.
Right. Do you know how many jiu-jitsu matches you've won and lost?
As a black belt, I do. I don't know it off the top of my head. But once I got my black belt, I started keeping track. I started writing it down.
Got it.
Just for, my own analytics, I guess.
But you can't just rip it off at the top of your head.
No, I don't know off the top of my head.
Sure.
I don't know off the top of my head. But the media coverage, it definitely like affects the sports and all sports,
Yes, of course. With money comes problems.
Yeah. And so, in MMA, we've seen it like in the beginning, it was martial arts, martial artists competing against each other, and then as it evolved, there became more of the entertainment value. What's the, how do we value you as an entertainer? And so, then, people started kind of like creating this little image of who they were that maybe not necessarily represented who they really were. It was just who they were as an entertainer,
right?
As a entertainer, fighter, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that's starting to cross over into jiu-jitsu now. Obviously, some people are doing a little more talking, and using social media to up their value. And of course, if you start talking and saying certain things, calling people out, trash talking here or there, more people are gonna hear about you because, oh, have you heard about this guy saying all these things, and so you're going to get more eyes on you, which inherently does, increase your value, so to speak, because people either want to see you to see if you back it up, or they want to see if you fall and get beat up. Connor has showed that firsthand, but for me, it's a little harder when it comes to martial arts because, as martial artists, we represent all these values, for character, for, especially with kids, just respect, honor, dignity, humility, all these things that we're supposed to represent. And
it's much harder when you're the leader of a school and a group of people that are not trying to be necessarily champions, but they just do jiu-jitsu to better their life. Exactly. And you're supposed to be an example for them. And I don't think all these guys in any sport, MMA, I don't necessarily think that if they talk a lot or they trash talk or whatever, they're necessarily like bad people. You know what I mean? That's just for sure
who they are as an entertainer. And so they can come off to where, some people are like, I really don't like that guy. He talks, he says this or that. But then if you meet him in real life, you might realize, well, hey, this is actually a good guy that's just trying to make money for his family, you know what I mean? And trying to make a living. But then even then I still get a little like torn because it's like,
I'm in the same place, man. I get torn. I get real torn. Yes.
Then you're being fake. You know what I mean? It's not the real you. And so, I get it. I choose not to go that route. And I think that there is definitely a lane that you can stay in where you are respectful and you don't trash talk your opponents and you really do set a good example for everybody, for your students, for the young athletes that look up to you. And you can be big, like St. Pierre, for example. There's someone that has really, never done anything that you would say, oh, that he's an asshole. You know what I mean? Like he's always clean cut and super respectful. Just a tremendous martial artist.
It's such a fine line because you have somebody like Muhammad Ali, right? Who did all of these things, but is probably one of the greatest icons sports has ever seen,
Yeah.
But he did, he did it in a very artful way, so I think some of that is getting missed. In the trash talk, because I don't think there's anybody like I think of all if you polled the world, I think Muhammad Ali would probably win. As far as like who's the most famous and greatest fighter. I mean, not skill set wise, obviously. I'm not talking that, but like he's an icon and he did all of this trash talking. So it's this balance that we have to find with this social media, which is very difficult.
For sure. And then you got someone take like the Diaz brothers, for example. I'm totally fine with it. Not like I think that they're necessarily great examples for everybody. I mean, I think that they're good guys when you get to know them and talk to them. But I also believe that there's just a bit of a realness.
That's who they are.
Yeah, that's who they are. And so, for them, it's not entertainment. Mm-mm. Like they're not transforming into their entertainment personality.
Who they are is entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so, it all all kind of depends on the person, but I think it's important that you identify personally what your why is. Why am I doing this? What do I want to stand for? Who do I want to speak to? And what do I have to say? And if that's who, you want to be, then okay. If you're really trying to be that, kind of Muhammad Ali, Conor thing, and that's your purpose, then good. Then you're following your.
I think the difference with Muhammad Ali,
your journey.
Right. I think the difference with Muhammad Ali, I love that you talked about why, because I talk about this a lot on the podcast, is you have to have a why, in your life. And I don't think Muhammad Ali's why was to be this great. I mean, he wanted to be a great boxer, and he knew that he'd be able to have the most social impact on the world as the heavyweight world champion. But his why was to change the culture. Change the culture of the world. It wasn't money based. It was not money based, right? So when you start doing things for money, it's very hard to have a why and money, because they cannot connect. Because when there's money over here and you're chasing money, you'll move on all of the core values that you have in your life if money is the goal.
Exactly. No, 100%. And even I would say the same if your goal is just titles,
fame, any of it,
just stats, title,
because that goes away. It's unachievable.
Exactly. It has to be deeper, and then also, let's say you get the title. What then? Man. Rashad talked about this with me. He got the title and he woke up and he was like, "It's the fucking same," and I thought it was going to be so different. Like no one's in my room right now. I just woke up by myself, like a normal Rashad Evans day, and what the fuck, Yeah, it has to be deeper. And so for me, I feel like I know my why. And
can I ask you 100%. What that is?
Well, I've been very blessed and fortunate to 100% live a martial arts life. My dad is a lifetime martial artist, and so growing up, that's all I've ever known. And so for me, it's martial arts first. The competition aspects of martial arts for me is just a stage to challenge myself and help me better myself as a martial artist. I learned to grow past the titles, and kind of fighting for those, kind of tangible rewards, like the medals and being able to say you're this or that or whatever. I learned to let go. I had to let go of that. And I had a really bad injury when I was in my just early 30s. It was like almost 5 years ago now. I tore my pec tendon, and that set me out for, quite a long time. It was a really big, major surgery. And coming back from that, I realized that things had to shift, because I was on the other side a little bit. I was abusing competition. I was overdoing it, and just, trying to win everything because I wanted my name out there all the time. And I was really, I spent my whole jiu-jitsu black belt career, I guess you would say, in trying to become a 2-time world champion. I wanted to be the first American to win the worlds twice. And I medaled 8 years in a row, which was like unheard of and never been done. But I never got a second gold. And that used to eat me up inside. And I just didn't feel like I was good enough, and I had to keep going and I had to keep pushing. And so every year was the same season, European, Pan Am's, World. Sometimes I go to Brazil, and I just did the same season over and over and over. And I lost track of my why. And I thought I just had to be this 2-time American world champion. And that was who I was going to be, a multiple-time gold medalist. And I had to do that. And during this time of when I was recovering from my injury, I had a kind of a redefining of who I was, and really figured my, like just a fresh perspective. It was the first time in my life that the pause button had got pushed, and I learned to let go of that. And I said, you know what, I'm proud of what I've done. It's not about these medals, you know what I mean? And being able to say this or that. And I kind of fell in love, with martial arts on a deeper level outside of the competition, because I didn't have my body anymore. I couldn't train. I couldn't move. I couldn't do it.
And that day's coming for all of us when we're not going to be champions.
Well,
right?
Exactly. At some point, we're not going to be in the limelight, but we're still going to want to train, because this is what we love to do. And so I just kind of found a deeper love and appreciation. And that's when I also decided to fully make a run in MMA and experience that next level challenge. But I've stayed active in jiu-jitsu at the same time. And I would argue to say that I'm even better now, and I'm doing better now in my 30s, coming back from this major injury, than what I was doing in my 20s, and I feel like I'm in my prime, and it's all because of the shift that I have in my mentality, and understanding what my why was and what I wanted to represent. And it was just, what I call a true martial artist.
Man, I love that you're talking about this, man. Like, this is for, I've had a very similar experience, not to your level, like I have some kids and some, businesses and things, like I'm not doing that. But I started competing again, a couple of years ago. And like, I don't know, for me, like, I didn't even care. I was like, you know what? I'm going to show my kids what scared looks like a little bit, like, I just can't tell them that they have to do things that make them a little nervous and that are hard. Like, I need to show them, and I need to be out there for my students. I need to not tell them to do this. Like, I'm not 50. I'm not 60. Like, I'm young enough to still like go put it on the line a little bit. I'm probably not going to win, but whatever. And man, like, Seth sent me that. I wasn't even trying. And Seth sent me a picture at the beginning of the year that I was like the number 8 ranked flow for the heavyweights. And I mean, I blew it this past weekend, but I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even paying attention to this. Like, oh, I wonder how this is going for me. Like, I was like, because it was centered around a different why. It wasn't centered around like, okay, I'm going to be a champion. Okay, I'm going to be a fucking champion. And that crushed me. That absolutely crushed me in my 20s.
Yeah.
That destroyed me. It brought me to my knees, after when I retired. And now it's like, I was like, huh? Man, they got that wrong name. That ain't fucking right. What are they talking about? I competed I competed 4 times last year. And right. I still think they got it wrong, because like Pushesh is not on the list and Hosh is not on the list, and but anyway, like the switch in the mindset of the why, right? Yes. I think you talked about it. Mine was another example of it, and I was like we're martial artists, and the end is coming for us all of this great athletic career. But the end comes for the martial arts when you close your eyes for the last time.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you something to look forward to. I used to
always
dread the thought of not being able to compete. And of course, there's still a big part of me inside that's like, when I'm not on that, world-class level anymore and competing professionally, blah, 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 I'm going to really miss it. But I know
you'll miss it. Of course you'll miss it.
I'm excited for the other journey, though,
of course
being able to spread this word and know what I have to say, and put more energy into my students and teaching all around the world and things like that. Maybe starting a podcast, and doing more stuff like this, writing a book, that
I'm stoked. My book hit #1 bestseller yesterday. I was really stoked. It came out on the first day. So I got a #1 bestseller on Amazon, so I was all happy about it.
See, that's huge. Congrats, man. I want to do that too. But I'm excited for that part of the journey, instead of just only thinking about dreading, who am I without competing on a world stage? You know what I mean? And so Yeah.
Fuck,
exactly.
man. I know we ran a little over here. The conversation was going well. I'm really sorry. So let's wrap this up. I just want to wrap it up with two things. One, a joke, and one serious. Man, I'm never competing against one of your guys ever again. It's not fucking happening. I've done it twice, and I've had 2 shoulder impingements. One that lasted months, bro, just from the pressure your guys is fucking passing. Like one that lasted months. The only way it healed, I have a torn bicep now because of it. And the other one, it lasted 3 weeks. So I'm done. I'm never doing. I'm done with you. I'm done with Ribeiro. Never fucking again. Like I'm like never taking one. And 2, man, I try never to think about. I think it's a bad way to think sometimes, but I think it can be helpful when you're like how to help people coming up in the future. If I had to do it again, you know, because I think there was a point like at brown belt that you and I were similar, you know, like you were always a little ahead of me, you know, and then you took off, you know, as far as being ahead of me. If I had to do it over again, I would do it like you, you know. So I just want to thank you for showing that example of how to do it, you know, and all of my students that I have, like these young 19, 20-year-olds, I'm trying to copy your mold, you know, and I know I'm not the one competing anymore, so I can't do it like that, but I'm trying to be their teacher in a way, and make them like Rafael Lovato Jr., you know? You know?
Thanks, Eliot. So I appreciate it, man.
You crush that, man. You set the gold standard, in my opinion, of how to do this, and if people want to look at it, you know, I think Donahar's doing something special as well. You know, currently we'll see where it leads. You know, I think his system is really crushing. So, but you know, it needs more time. You know, but still, currently, you have the gold standard of how to become a great martial arts champion and a person as well. So, man, you're the fucking man.
Thanks, Eliot. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Tell everyone where they can reach you, everything that you got coming up and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'm easy to find on social media. On my Instagram handle is Lovato JR BJJ, and it's LOVATO JRBJJ. You can find me on Facebook like that too. I got pages on everything. My personal website is lovatojr.com. Anyone in Oklahoma or comes through Oklahoma, I have an academy in Oklahoma City. The website's okbjj.com. And right now I'm getting ready for a couple big grappling matches. The first one is going to be in Dallas for a fight to win. I'll be facing 2-time ADCC champ Yuri Samois, who's one of the top 2 or 3 grapplers in the world right now. So I'm really excited for that. And then it's yet to be announced. It might be announced by the time we release this, but I'm also going to be taking part in Polaris the next week, March 15th in Europe, in London. And I'm really excited. This will be my debut for them.
Do you have a matchup?
I do.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I do. And it's a big name. People are going to be pumped. I'm pretty pumped. And so I'm doing back-to-back events. I haven't done that since I was like in my 20s. Right. Yeah. So I'm pretty pumped. And then hopefully, like I said, May would be perfect. I'll be fighting for that Bellator title. Real quick, I want to shout out a few of my sponsors: War Tribe Gear, On It, and Resilience CBD. If you follow me on social media, you'll see me talking about all this stuff and seminars and things like that. Man, hope that we get to train together again soon. Yeah, man. I have a couple times when I got better, like the next day, and that was one of them. So I appreciate that, you know, like I was better 4 times actually when I was like, oh shit. And I remember them very distinctly. And that weekend I got better. So awesome.
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Eliot.
All right, man. That's it. Rafael Lovato Jr., the fucking best American ever to tie a black belt around his waist. So fuck yeah, man. Thanks for doing this.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys, we're out. All right, guys, thanks for listening to this episode of The Gospel Fire. Don't forget to check me out on all of my social media at FireMarshal205. Again, at FireMarshal205. Go to my YouTube channel. Fire Marshal 01, that is, for YouTube, where you can follow. I'm making these videos 100K strong. That's the goal for the year. I want 100,000 strong listeners to the Gospel of Fire. So I'm trying to make a video a week so that you guys can follow along on my journey of how I go about my day, some things that I talk about, some things that I try to work on for myself. And then finally, don't forget my website, eliotmarshall.com, where you can get up to date with everything that has to do with me personally, the Gospel of Fire. You're going to find all about my book release, also called the Gospel of Fire, February 12th. It will be for sale on Amazon that whole week for 99 cents. So all that information at eliotmarshall.com. Thanks again for listening. Thanks to my sponsors, Evo Labs and On It. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode.